This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
Salam and welcome to the Halftime Show with Omar Adori. I'm your host, cover everything sport, international and local. Hope you're having a blessed day wherever you're tuned in around the world, whether it's 95 FM, pulse95radio.com, our app, Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, or if you're chilling at home, watching us live on YouTube. I'm super stoked to have this next guest on the show and plenty of big things coming your way. Peter Murray, welcome on the show.
Omar, great to be here. Thank you. And I'm in Dubai, and I can't believe we're not doing this in person, but thanks for having me.
You know, you're a busy man, and the fact I could even get you on Zoom, for me, that's a plus. But the next time you're in town, I promise I'll bring you into the studio. How's that?
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Now, Peter, tell me, man, the expansion of the PFL to the Middle East is huge. Firstly, can you tell the listeners about the PFL?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the PFL, we're the number 2 organization in the world globally. What makes the PFL unique is our sports season format. Individual fighters fight in a regular season, a playoff, and a championship. It all culminates with a world championship with 6 world title fights in one night, again, across 6 weight classes, 5 men's, 1 women's, and each champion each year earns $1 million and their belt for their respective weight class. So, when we launched the company 5 years ago, our vision was to advance and grow the sport and ultimately give fighters opportunities to compete against top competition on a global stage and actually make more money. It's a global sport, and our roster of fighters, half of the fighters are from the U.S., where the PFL is based. We're based in New York City as our headquarters, but the other half of the fighters from outside the U.S., international fighters from 25 countries. And what I can tell you is the talent that's coming out of the UAE and the broader region is continuing to candidly improve. And we believe it's a hotbed. Our president of fighter operations, Ray Sefo, is a former 6-time world champion K1 kickboxer. Ray's an athlete. And he and his team have been spending a lot of time, candidly, the last 2 years of signing some fighters from the region. I mean, just last week, we signed a fighter from Lebanon and Syria. We have Jara, who's a former Braves champion from Jordan.
Salawi.
Yeah, and Salawi. Yeah, just signed him. And Jara is actually fighting tomorrow night, Friday, in the U.S. live. And if he wins this fight, he'll get into the playoffs. Oof. And then he has one more shot closer to the $1 million championship fight for him. So it's an incredible ride and an opportunity for fighters to once again compete on a global stage and get paid, every fight, and then ultimately have the opportunity to have to earn their way to a championship. It sounds like that should be the standard. It pretty much is the standard in all sports. But in MMA, until the PFL launched, candidly, there's a lot of, we listen to fighters, and, they tell us that they're happy to be competing professionally, but it's very difficult for them to manage their careers. And so for us, if you're good enough to get into the league and have the skills and the credentials and the desire to be champion, well, it's called earn it. And it's a meritocracy. And it works for all other major sports and the world's #1 sport, football, soccer, and all other major leagues, including the EPL and NFL, where I came from.
Yeah.
And so that's what's really driving the growth of the PFL. But we have top talent, from around the world competing, and stars.
Yeah. So much to dissect in that. One thing is, firstly, you mentioned it's been 5 years, but it hasn't been a normal 5 years. Could you imagine how fast you guys have grown in the last 5 years?
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe it really starts with the vision. MMA is the fastest growing sport in the world. There are over 600 million fans globally and growing. It's the youngest of all major sports fan bases. And here's the other thing. This fan base, half of those 600 plus million fans are not watching stick and ball sports. They're not watching football. They're not watching basketball. They're not watching rugby and other sports. They're spending most of their time consuming MMA, and they want access to more premium MMA events and fights. And that's what we're fulfilling. I mean, so we're providing opportunities for fighters, but also opportunities for fans around the world to engage and access quality MMA and fights. And here's another stat that I think, Omar, you may be aware of this, but it blew my mind. And this came out earlier this week from Nielsen, right? Okay. Reporting entity in media. 45% of all UAE sports fans consider themselves avid fans of MMA. So when you think about that sheer number across the region, and then you look at the event calendar of major MMA events, there's not enough events for the fans here. And so the PFL, we're excited about growing the sport globally, staging events outside the U.S. We're doing our playoffs in the U.K. We launch our playoffs in August in New York City at Madison Square Garden. And then we head over to the UK for one event in Cardiff and one event in London. And then the championship, we have not announced where we're going to stage that event. It will be outside the US. Okay. And it very well could be here in Dubai. And so we have a number of options, but we're looking forward to making a more formal announcement where that event will be, but it certainly will be an international event. It's a spectacle, 6 world title fights in one night, $6 million on the line, the richest night in MMA, coupled with some major entertainment. So we think it would be fantastic to do it right here in Dubai.
And not only that, I mean, you say the richest night in MMA, just the way you were talking and the way you were speaking about it, MMA hasn't always been in this light. There's been a lot of controversy about the fighters maybe not getting paid. In this case, it's about them actually getting paid and getting the value that they put their bodies on the line there. And you guys are providing that platform for them and rewarding them with it.
Exactly, Omar. And I mean, that's, we come from a true sport background. We have credibility in MMA with my team. But within the PFL, we have broader expertise in broader sports, media, entertainment, and technology. And to further advance and grow the sport, you got to lead with the athlete. And professional is in our name. We treat our athletes like partners, like the professionals that they are. We compensate them. We give them incentive, but they have to earn it. But it's very transparent. So unlike, candidly, other promotions or organizations in the sport. And so, our role is simply to provide great fighters opportunities, but we celebrate, fighters around the world and the diversity, and our events are very much an Olympic-like experience.
Amazing. I told you guys it was going to be good, and that was only just the first segment. Stay tuned for more on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
Salam and welcome back to the Halftime Show. If you're kicking yourself for missing the first segment, don't worry. You can catch Peter Murray on the Halftime Show on our YouTube channel on Pulse 95 Radio. And I'm telling you, that was just the start. The starters to what we're serving up today, because Peter was talking to me about a bunch of things that are coming your way in the UAE, and you have to check out the episode for that. Peter, talk to me about the up-and-coming fighters in the region. It's exciting times, and it's something that a lot of the fighters out here are looking forward to. Tell me more about it.
Well, we talked a little bit about earlier in the first segment. We're really excited about Jara's journey, the Jordanian Lion. Yeah. We signed him earlier in the year. He's had a great performance in the PFL's Challenger Series. He won, and that helped him punch his ticket into the 2022 season, where he's on a run. He won his first fight. He dominated. He really showed Ray Sefo, our president of fighter operations, something, and our team. I was very impressed. And now this Friday night live, it's distributed around the world, and on NBC here in the UAE, you can see Jara live, his second PFL regular season event, where that fight determines if he gets into the playoffs or not. And if he gets into the playoffs, once again, $1 million is on the line. Oh, and boy. So he's really, really an exciting and fighter. He's got great credentials. We also signed Salawi, which we're really excited to see how he performs within the PFL and our system. And what I could tell you is there'll be more fighters that we sign from the region. And we provide a system, an opportunity for fighters at different stages of their career. So we have the Pfl Challenger Series, which is for fighters who are pros, early stages, but they aspire to get into the league season. So we offer that opportunity to compete. It's also on a global stage. They get paid, but the big prize is to get into the global PFL season. We have our season events, which I talked about. And then next year, we're going to be launching a pay-per-view super fight division. And we'll be putting on major events with needle-moving, talent and matchups. So that's next year. This year, we had 18 global events. Next year, we'll have over 22. And what I can tell you is we're also going to be launching regional leagues, and more to come on that.
Okay, so maybe an exclusive here on the Halftime Show, getting all the juice from the man himself, Peter. Peter, I also wanted to ask you, just listening to how you speak, man, and the passion that you have, how important is it to have that passion from the top, which gets the fighters involved, not just in transparency, but trust as well with you guys?
No, trust is the number one word in any relationship, in life, and in business. And the end of the day, trust is also earned. And so, our fighters can trust today because of our performance over the last 5 years and commitment to the sport and to their journeys, that, we're there to support their careers. They're part of the league. They are essentially the product. And we want to make sure that they're always treated as professionals and they're provided the opportunities afforded to other major athletes.
And not only that, but providing leagues and seasons in different countries outside of the US, that also inspires and motivates the homegrown talent out here to be able to do their thing and not feel pressured to move their families and everything abroad to get to that, stage.
No, absolutely. You clicked out for a minute there on my service, so I missed the first part of that question, Omar. I'm sorry.
No problem, Peter. What I was saying is, by having the seasonal and the regional leagues that you have, it allows fighters to be able to blossom and grow from where they're based in the UAE, rather than the pressures of moving all their family out to the US.
Yeah, that's our vision. We envision having PFL regional leagues in region, made up of fighters, from separate regions around the world and countries, top talent competing to be the best in certain countries and regions, and then we'll foster pan-regional competition among these leagues, and then the champions and the top athletes will ladder up to PFL Global.
Amazing. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back after the break. Don't go anywhere, folks. More on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
Salam and welcome back to the Halftime Show with Omar Adori. You can catch the show every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, 3 to 4 UAE time in the heart of Sharjah on Pulse 95 Radio. Peter Murray's on the show. Peter, I got to pick your brain for more, golden moments that you've been telling me throughout this episode. What are the modern fighters, who are the modern fighters that set the bar high for the fight game?
Yeah, that's great. It's a great question. I'll speak about the PFL's fighters. We've we've got some of the most dominant fighters in the game today. Kayla Harrison. So Kayla, former two-time gold medalist in U.S. judo, now undefeated, 12, 13 and 0. She was just nominated this week. We're very proud of Kayla, ESPN ESPY's MMA Fighter of the Year nominee.
Awesome.
Only 4 fighters were nominated. 3 of those other fighters were A, men, and B, UFC fighters. So we're really, really happy, for Kayla to be in the mix, and it's a privilege to have her on the roster. We really developed Kayla into the sport under Ray Sefo. We have other athletes that we have developed into some of the top talent in the sport today. Our 2-time welterweight champion Ray Cooper, he's from Hawaii. One of the hardest hitting welterweights, in the sport. One of the best fighters coming out of Hawaii. We also had fighters come over from other organizations who are at the top of their career. Anthony Pettis. Anthony last year was his first season in the PFL, and he underestimated the caliber of fighters in the league. And I'm not telling you anything that Anthony hasn't already shared with his camp, his circle, as well as the media. And he's been grinding it out, and now he's well positioned, for a playoff run. So that's exciting. But it's a redemption story for Anthony, and it's part of his legacy. Rory McDonald, former welterweight, champion. He's been in the mix. This is his second season. He's performing really well, and other major, fighters. And, so what I could say is I could just encourage you and your listeners and fans to just check out the show. We got a show on Friday night on NBC live. You can also go on pflmma.com to learn more about the league and check out our archive. But some of the most exciting, fighters, exciting fights today. And what I like to say in the PFL and our format, every fight counts. There's no undercard. And fans are assured in the postseason, which is upcoming this August, and then the championship in November, they're assured that they're going to see the very best fighters compete against one another who earn their way to that matchup. And so life-changing money on the line. We love the narrative. We love providing the opportunity for fighters. And most importantly, we love giving fans access to premium, innovative MMA on major media platforms like NBC.
And, again, you mentioned fighters like Anthony Pettis, who was on the cereal box with a famous kick. And you mentioned Rory McDonald, who's one of the best, all-rounded fighters as well in his time. For the up-and-coming fighters, what makes them stand out to reach PFL standards?
Yeah, well, number one, it has to do with their credentials, their past records, what organizations that they fought for, and who they fought against. And, we look at a lot of tape, Ray Sefo and the team analyzing fighters. Ray has developed some of the greatest fighters in the sport, from Justin Gaethje to Marlon Moraes, all under Ray's oversight and development. And, we have an entire team that's dedicated to scouting, identifying, and developing, which is really important. So not just signing and then, throwing fighters at the deep end of the pool, being thoughtful of how we develop fighters at different stages of their career. And one other fighter I can mention, another woman, amazing, Olympian, Claressa Shields. So Claressa Shields, greatest woman all-time boxer, U.S. Olympian, 2-time gold medalist. No man or woman has done that other than Claressa in USA boxing history. And now she's one of the greatest women all-time pro boxers, multiple belts. She's got a big fight coming up, I believe this fall. Hasn't been announced yet in terms of the date. But Claressa will also be on our championship card in November. Her third appearance and fight in MMA. She debuted with us last year. She showed tremendous, for a champion in one combat sport, she's very confident and dominant, but she showed so much. She was very humble because now she's got to start from the ground up. And she put herself out there to do that. So, and she trusted the PFL to develop her MMA career. So she'll also be on the championship card in addition to the 6 world title fights. Major global event.
Amazing. With Claressa as well, I mean, her movement and just, you know, her skill set is something that stands up. Also, like you said, how humble she is. I mean, that is almost unseen in the sport.
Right. And I think it's more challenging for boxers to come over into MMA. And obviously she's put it out there as well. She has a lot more work to do in MMA to become champion, but that is her goal, to be a 2-sport combat champion in boxing, champion in MMA with the PFL. We're giving her that opportunity, but once again, she's got to earn it. And so, you know, she's definitely working, you know, on her other skills beyond her stand-up striking. She's got great people in her world helping her develop in MMA, not only boxing. So I'm excited to see her fight in September in boxing, and then transition to the cage for her 3rd official MMA fight.
What's your take
in November?
On athletes making the transition? I mean, we've seen from mixed martial arts, some people go to boxing. We've seen wrestling to boxing. We've seen MMA to wrestling. We've seen all sorts of things. What's your opinion on that?
I think it's great. I mean, listen, mixed martial arts is multiple techniques and styles, and fighters coming from different disciplines. That's what makes the sport. So, you know, you can have a kickboxer coming in who has no MMA, you know, experience. You know, fans get to see, you know, the growth of a fighter, and, you know, how they round out, you know, their game, so to speak. So I think it's really exciting. And, you know, obviously, you know, wrestling is, you know, there's so many champions who come up through the wrestling system and sport. You know, they just have different techniques and leverage to finish and defend. But, you know, I think that's what makes the sport exciting. Multiple disciplines coming together.
One last question before we take the break. Fighters now are considered brands. How important is a fighter supposed to focus on his brand as well as his fighting?
Yeah, critically important. I mean, both men and women, you know, fighters, professional athletes, and in MMA, certainly PFL fighters. Number one, you know, the PFL, we have high standards as it relates to character and how fighters conduct themselves, you know, within the league, inside the cage, and outside the cage. That's a principle of ours. But it's critically important for them to promote their brands and create their platforms for their personal expression. Critically important. You know, the PFL, we play a role in that, in not only promoting the league and the events, but the fighters play a role in it. It's their voice. Fans want to hear from them directly, and we support our fighters in that. You know, we provide media training, we provide social media tools, and we support them in content. It's in our collective best interest. So we do work together.
Amazing. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back after this on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
Salam and welcome back to the Halftime Show. It's almost full time on the Halftime Show, but you know what? What a show it's been, man. So much exciting things coming your way. Thanks to the guy here behind the lens, Peter Murray, who I promise, Peter, I will get you in the studio the next time you're here. I can't wait for that. I'm telling you now, it's going to be fire.
Well, I tell you what, Omar, when we stage our first event here, which will be coming soon, we'll have you cage side with us and you broadcast live from the show.
Oh man, amazing. So excited. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Before the break, Peter, we were talking and there was something that really went off in my head. You were talking about what you give the fighters. You provide them tools, media tools, you know, how to almost brand them as characters as well as fighters. But if you could have, this is a question for you. If you could have any person who's not in MMA come into the PFL of your choice, who would you bring in?
No, I mean, that's a difficult question to answer. I mean, in the end, outside the sport, there's so many different personalities that, from the entertainment space, from broader sports. But, we're going to stick with, we're partnering with and working with some of the best MMA athletes in the world. Yeah. And you need, first and foremost, personality matters. Yeah. Their inner character, unlocking that absolutely matters. But first and foremost, they got to have the skills, right? They got to have the skills. They got to have the determination, and they have to have the commitment. And so we look at that first, and then on the other side of it, the personality side, critically important. And again, we want to, our jobs is to unlock those inner characters and beasts to, share their voice and share their passion combined with their fighting.
I love it. I love it. Now, you mentioned a couple of dates. I want the listeners to get that opportunity again. What's coming up for the PFL, and what dates shall we look out for?
You got it. So our last regular season event is this Friday night. Tomorrow, what's today? I'm losing track of time.
Thursday.
I came from today's Thursday. Yeah. So tomorrow night, Friday Night Live, NBC. Okay. Will be the Jaras event, nice. The Jordanian Lion, and that's on NBC tomorrow night. And then come August 5th, we kick off the playoffs at Madison Square Garden with Anthony Pettis's weight class and other fighters. And then we come over the next week on that Saturday, the 12th, is our event in Cardiff. And then the next week, the following Saturday, on the 20th of August, we're in London. And that's our entire playoffs, 3 playoff events, two events back-to-back in Europe. And then that's where it all goes down to determine who gets into the big show, the championship, where you have $6 million night, richest night in MMA. And we'll be announcing the destination of that championship very soon.
Oh, I can't wait for that. And one last thing for you before I let you go. Where can the listeners track social media or anything in terms of the news and all the progress and the announcements that happen?
Sure. Just check out, PFL MMA or pflmma.com, and fans will get full access to our entire archive of fights, all information about the season, what's upcoming, the matchups, the fighters, as well as the standings and all the details.
Fantastic. Peter, you have been an absolute pleasure to interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Omar, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you soon, my friend. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. And that was the Heart of Sharjah, Pulse 95 Radio, the halftime show with Omar Duri and none other than himself, Peter Murray, on the show. Have a fantastic day, guys. We're out.
If you liked this episode of The Halftime Show, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.